And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, my name is Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Grackles. Grackles is a game in which it's an abstract strategy game. It says here you're going to line up birds in a row, etc., etc. So it's neat that there's these cool looking ravens or crows here in the front in different colors, but the game is going to be about placing your pieces in a line on a shifting landscape or shifting tiles out there. It's very simple, very easy to play. Let me show you. Players have 45 birds of their color, these little plastic chips here, and your goal is to get as many onto the board as possible. The board is going to be a grid of 5 by 5. It's going to start with these two. You have these diamonds here that connect to each other to show you the starting tiles. On your turn, and players take turns just going around until the game ends, you can do one action. One thing you can do is you can draw and you can place a tile somewhere on the board, like let's say like this. Another thing you do is you can build a line. So let's say I'm black. I can pick two of the black circles and put connections between those circles. So I can do this, for example, between the black and the black. That's actually the only one that I could do. The blue player on their turn could connect these two, for example. So you can draw tiles, and so maybe green's going to place their tile like this, and then later on maybe they have a chance to connect these. Now, you can also, as the game goes by, if you have a square out in such a way, you can extend a line. So this would be legal on my turn to add, because this line here, I connect it to the next green dot. You cannot extend it so it's a right degree angle. So this is not legal. You can also, you have 5 of these rotate tokens. On your turn, you can rotate a tile on the board by spending one of those tokens. Of course, you can only do that 5 times over the course of the game. Now, as you're building the tiles, once there are 5, like for example, let's say someone puts one here, now that's the height of this. It can't go any higher. And then once there's 5 another way, let's say maybe like this, now we have the boundaries of this grid finished, or fixed at least. So you just keep taking turns going around, either drawing and placing a tile, building a line, extending a line, or rotating it. After all 25 tiles are out in a 5 by 5 grid, you just keep taking turns placing birds, extending lines, etc. And then you pull all your birds off the board, and whoever has placed the most is the winner of the game. I was very pleasantly surprised by how much I like these little plastic chips that are in the game. They're just fun to move around. They're only one-sided with the little crow on the one side, but they fit nicely on here. Another thing that's really nice, and this is not something that you might notice, but if you're colorblind, you don't have to worry about the colors. You can see that the black has a very thin, a lot of dots around it, while the blue is an unbroken line. So that's just an easy way to tell them apart. There's no way to tell the colors apart, but I don't think the colors are that hard to distinguish anyway. The tiles themselves are not like anything great, things to look at here, but they are thick enough and they work well. And there's also a tile included for each player that tells you the 4 different actions that you can do on your turn. So for the price point of this game, they're fairly nice components. Now, this game plays 2 to 4 players, and it scales okay, but I think it is best at 2. 2 has a very nice back and forth thing to it, and I prefer it actually at 2. 4 is fine. There is one small problem with 4-player game, and that's the fact that it can have a kind of mediocre ending to the game. Well, actually, any of the number of player counts can have a mediocre ending if players save their rotate tokens. So at the end of the rotate tokens are useful, but you can rotate it and then someone can rotate it back. And in fact, I would institute a house rule that you cannot rotate the same tile that someone else just rotated, just to keep the game from devolving into that. In fact, we had one game where we got to the last aisle and several people had rotate tokens left, like 3, 4, 4, and 4, or whatever. And so everyone was going to rotate it to best help them. So instead of spending all the time, everyone just turned in all the rotate tokens one at a time until one person had it. And that person rotated it to where they wanted it to be. So that's kind of, the game, it does not get more exciting, and actually as you get down to the last 2 tiles, you can often tell who's going to win at that point. That being said, though, the game itself is fine. It's a pleasant abstract game where you're trying to make it, and it's very satisfying when you see a long line. Sometimes you'll set something up and give someone else a shorter line, but hoping that they don't want to take it because it's so short so that you can get a longer one. But they know that you will get the longer one, so they'll take the shorter one just to cut you off. There's a bit of cutthroatness to the game, as I will do my best to mess your lines up. That's how these abstract strategy games work. And another reason why I think the game plays best with 2, because when you're playing a 2-player abstract strategy game, you fully expect your opponent to do such nonsense to you. Grackles has a fairly low price point. It's easy to teach. It can be played with kids and adults, and I wish more of these abstract strategy games existed. Happily, this one does. Check it out, Grackles. Dice Tower Judgment approved.